morning. Such a nice idea to come out on a Sunday morning to be able to learn as a preparation for Shavuot. All the days of the Sphira, we know we're counting upwards, we're not counting down, because we have to know that each day counts as opposed to each day is just an anticipation of something else. And so I really want to get into, I think, one of the most powerful ideas within the Ma'amad Har Sinai. And it happens to be that within Ma'amad Har Sinai, we cannot just learn from the actual message that God gives us of Anochi Hashem Elokecha and Lo Yeh Lecha Elohim Acharim Al Panai, etc., of all the Aseret HaDibrot, which is the main tochen, the main material and the main subject that we learn at Har Sinai, but rather I think that there is a lot to learn from the peripheral, what's around the miracles at Har Sinai. And I think that that's what I want to focus on today. And the reason why I came to this question was because if you think about it, if all of Am Yisrael would have gone to Har Sinai, stood at the mountain, and would have said, and would have just stood there and heard God's voice, say the words, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am the Lord your God, said the words, Lo Tirtzach, Lo Tiknov, would that not have been marshim enough? Would that not have been, made an influence on them, have enough of an influence on them to excite them and to gain their commitment to Torah? Would that not have been enough? Just to hear God's voice. And I know, being personally, I would think that if I heard God's voice talking to me, and I was sure of it, as they were at Har Sinai, they were sure that they heard God's voice, that would have, in my mind, that would have been enough. I would have had enough of a commitment and enough of an awe towards the event that I don't think anything else was needed. And so what's interesting is, even though God was speaking to man, and this was probably one of the most amazing religious events ever in history, probably the number one event in all of history, rivaled maybe only by Yetziat Mitzrayim and Kriyat Yamsuf, would happen just days before. But God actually coming to people, coming to man and speaking to them, and telling them that I want something from you. I'm not just the creator, I'm not just your savior, but rather I'm your commander, I'm your teacher, I'm there to guide you in your life. This event was incredible. But it wasn't just that. God didn't just stop there of hearing their voice, but rather HaKadosh Baruch Hu came out and He did these amazing miracles. These incredible miracles that I think must have a certain message. There must be that something is there within these miracles. As an educator, I think that within everything we do, it's not just the words that we're saying, but rather the way that we present the material, the way that the different methods that we use, whether or not it's a board or a video, or whether or not it's music, or pictures on the wall, whatever it is, we're trying to send a message. As in school, you can see in every classroom we have the map of Israel, we have an Israeli flag. That's because we're trying to send a message, and you'll see in different classrooms, whether it's a Gemara, we'll show the structure of the Gemara page on the wall. There's always a message in all the multimedia that is used when you're giving across a message. So right now I want to take a look at the peripheral education that was happening at Har Sinai. What was God trying to teach us with everything that happened around it? Now there were many, many miracles. There's the loud shofar, and there was the barak, there was the lightning and thunder and lots of different things. I want to focus on just a few of these ideas, and hopefully from these examples of trying to learn from the message of the peripheral education, the multimedia part of the education, hopefully we can take the next step, and every one of us can start thinking of what does each one of the miracles, each one of the messages at Har Sinai mean for us and for all generations. So we're going to start, without further ado, we're going to start with, I think, one of the most fascinating miracles, which is actually quite puzzling. It starts off just from the first source. The first source, we're going to look at the miracles. As you can see in the boxes, in the big boxes, we have the psukim themselves. And afterwards, we're going to see the sources that discuss those psukim. But first and foremost, it says, before God starts speaking the Aseret HaDibrot, it says, Vayidaber Elokim et kol hadvarim ha'ele lemor. God spoke all of these words to be said. Now, there's something strange about that, because usually it doesn't say kol hadvarim ha'ele. In the Torah, very often it says that God spoke to Moshe and Aaron, God spoke, but where does it say kol hadvarim ha'ele? All of these things. Why does it focus on all of the things as opposed to just telling us that God spoke and that's it? So the Midrash, and this is the Mechilta, and source number 2, which is the Mechilta de Rabbi Yishmael, which was written by obviously Rabbi Yishmael, was a drasha, halachic drasha, midrash on the psukim themselves. There are different books written of Torah Shabbal Peh, of the oral Torah. One of them being the most famous, probably the Mishnah, which was a categorical, it was set up in such a way where it went according to topic. It was a topical structure of the Mishnayot, Shabbos, Megillah, Eruvin, etc. But there were many, many books, halachic works, as well as agadic works, homileic works, that were written according to the psukim themselves. And one of those was the Mechilta. So we're going to be using the Mechilta a number of times throughout this shiur, because it's written directly on the psukim of Matan Torah. So the Mechilta says as follows: Et kol. Notices that it says Et kol advarim. Melamed she'amar aseret hadibrot b'dibur acher mashi'iev echad mashi'iev shal lebasar v'adam lomar ken shneimar b'daber Elokim et kol advarim eila lemor im ken ma tamud lomar anochi Hashem Elokecha lo yeh lecha melamed she'amar Kadosh Baruch Hu aseret hadibrot b'dibur echad v'chasar patran dibur b'dibur b'fnei atzmo. In English, you can take a look for yourselves. What Rabbi Yishmael is coming to tell us is he notices from the word that kol advarim eileh, that it says God said everything. And then afterwards, it gives us a list of what He said. So why does it tell us that? It says it was a miracle. God decided to say the entire Aseret HaDibrot in one moment, in one voice, and nikudah achat, just a moment, just said, and that was all of Aseret HaDibrot. And we heard all of Aseret HaDibrot at once. That was a miracle, because you're not able to differentiate between words if they're all said at once. Meaning, in order for us to understand something, it has to be said over a series of time. It has to be said as a process. We understand the process. We don't understand everything at once. But God said Aseret HaDibros at once. Now, it's a very, very strange idea, because afterwards, He didn't just say it at once, but then He went back and said each one individually. The question is, why? What was God trying to tell us by first saying everything at once and then splitting it up? On top of that, we have to think about Aseret HaDibrot. What are Aseret HaDibrot? They're not just, it seems, if you just read them superficially, it would seem that these are, in a certain sense, 10 random halachot. Meaning, I don't know, is kashrut's not in there, and kashrut is a very, very important mitzvah. Taras Mishpacha is not in there. Many, many things. Yom Kippur is not in there. Lots of things that are very, very important to us are not written in Aseret HaDibrot. So what are the Aseret HaDibrot? So the Zohar, and this is also found in the Yerushalmi, and this is in source number 3, points out that all of the 10 Aseret HaDibrot are really not, they're not just 10 halachot, but rather they are the titles. They are the outline for the entire Torah. And there are Rishonim and Gaonim in the past that have tried to fit in every single one of the halachot within the Aseret HaDibrot, to figure out what Anochi Hashem Elokecha is the heading for which mitzvot. And then the mitzvah of Shabbos is the heading for, let's say, Yom Kippur and all the holidays, as well as other mitzvot. And then are all the mitzvot of Edut. So you see that there is a number of different ideas that you can find within each one of the Aseret HaDibrot. And the Aseret HaDibrot are really part of something as a whole. And so it becomes even stranger that God said the Aseret HaDibrot, not only the Aseret HaDibrot, but as we find the entire Torah, before giving us the Torah, He said everything at once. But just at once. Why did He do such a thing? Okay, the next point, in order to answer this, I think we can see another idea within the Torah. So, in Shmot, Perakaf, Pasuk Tet Vav. This is in source number 4. There was another miracle. The miracle was the Kol Ha'am Ro'im et HaKolot ve'et HaLapidim. It says, and all the people saw the noises. Now this is a very, very strange language, because what does it mean to see noise? I know my kids, they watch the show called I'm sure many of you know, The Magic School Bus. And there's an episode where they learn about sound waves. And so they all put on these special glasses, and they're able to see how sound waves, when they're low, they're further apart, and when they're high, the vibrations are closer together. So was it that all of Bnei Yisrael put on these special glasses and able to see the vibrations? So I don't know exactly what it means to see sounds. There's a certain syndrome. It's not a negative syndrome. It's actually quite fascinating. A friend of mine has where all sounds become certain colors, and certain letters are certain colors. Hey, does anyone know what it's called? I forget what it's called. Oh, it's so okay? So this is a fascinating thing. It could be that everyone there, all of a sudden, they develop this ability. But it's an incredible thing. Why is that? And this is what the Midrash on the second page in the Mechilta Rabbi Yishmael points out, it says, V'chol ha'am ro'im et ha'kolot, and all the nations saw the kolot. Ro'im ha'nireh v'shomim ha'nishma. Div Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Yishmael comes and tells you, no, it's nothing out of the ordinary, really. They saw what they saw, and they heard what they heard. Rabbi Akiva says, no, you don't get it. What happened was, ro'im v'shomim ha'nireh. They were able to see the sounds. What does that mean? What does that mean they were able to see the sounds? So, Rav Moshe Shapiro gives one answer, and I think that it's a very, very powerful answer. And it's based upon the next two sources. The next two sources, first of all, come and say that there was another miracle that happened in Har Sinai. The Midrash points out that at the moment of Har Sinai, everything stopped. The entire world stopped. Everything. There wasn't a bird that chirped, a cow that mooed, an angel that said Kadosh, Kadosh. Not a single sound was made at the time of Har Sinai. What is that coming to tell us? He understands, when Moshe Shapiro understands that what happened over here was, if we believe that everything in history is something that is part of a process, nothing happens for no reason. So when I say that everything happens for a reason and everything stops, why does it stop? Everything in the world happens for a reason. God is in control of the world. Everything in history is part of a process. All of a sudden the process stops. What is that coming to tell us? That the process is over. The process is over. In other words, everything up until now is reaching up to the process of Matan Torah. After Matan Torah, a whole new process starts. Up until Matan Torah, everything was working towards the reality of the Aseret HaDibrot. And if you go back to the Zohar, on source number 3, the Zohar points out and says, the Kol Eser Amirin Dibereshit Alin Itkuhu Aluche Avanim. He says they make a parallel between the Eser Ma'amarot that the world was created in, the 10 Ma'amarot that the world was created in, are parallel to the 10 Ma'amarot that were said at Har Sinai. The world was created in 10 verses, in 10 proclamations. So too the Torah was given with 10 proclamations. And we see that there's definitely a connection between them. By the way, the Sfat Emet points out that there's also another 10 which is connected. What are the other 10 that we see in this story that is very much connected? The Makot. They're Aseret HaMakot. So in other words, we have the 10, God created the world with 10 proclamations. He showed that He controls the world through 10 Makot. And then showed that there's a new spirituality infused within the world through the 10 Dibrot. The 10 Dibrot start a whole nother realm, a whole nother way of looking at the world, where now all of a sudden God is not just a creator, but rather He has expectations from us. The whole process of the world until then stopped because now we've reached it. We've gotten to that pinnacle of life, that pinnacle of the history where we change from being people that were just created to part of the process of fulfilling God's word. You can't really fulfill nature. God said, Yehi or, it's not, okay, there's light in the world, what does that have anything to do with me? I'm kind of a passive part of creation. But all of a sudden it changes, and in reality, I now keep Shabbat. I now kibud avim. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. It changes. It's a total paradigm shift where I now am no longer part of creation. I'm no longer a creation, but rather I'm also somebody who is partnering within the creation and bringing Torah and being Mekayim the Torah, which is a new reality within the world. And so it's actually, you can see this. It's a fascinating midrash. The next one, also found in the Mechilta, where Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva have an argument. Rabbi Yishmael says, and this is also based upon the pasuk that we saw before, that God said all of these things to be said. Leimor. What's leimor? The people were supposed to answer. Now the question is, what were they supposed to answer? So Rabbi Yishmael says, every time God would say a positive commandment, all the people would say, yes, yes, yes. Whenever everyone would say a negative commandment, everyone would say, no, no. It would say, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, and the entire nation would answer, yes, yes, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. He would say, Lo yeh lecha Elohim achim al panai, and everyone would answer, Lo, we won't. But Rabbi Akiva, he gives a very different interpretation. He says, what happened? Rabbi Akiva says that whenever God would say, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, people would answer, yes, yes, yes. And when God would then say, Lo yeh lecha Elohim achim al panai, and they would answer, yes, yes, yes. What's going on? Yes for that. Don't break Shabbos. Yes, yes, yes. What are they saying? What's going on? So, again, on the same line of thought, Rav Moshe explains that what happened was that there was a new reality in the world. and they were just noticing it. They were noticing that there was a recreation. Beforehand, if someone would break Shabbat, there was no commandment. It didn't exist in the world. Shabbat was an idea that God created, but it wasn't a commandment that I had to keep. And so they're saying, yes, breaking Shabbos is a new reality. I can see it with my eyes. And I think that, and then it continues, and explains that what does it mean that God showed us the sounds? What do we see? We don't say very often, I heard it with my own ears. I heard it with my own ears does not mean the same thing as I saw it with my own eyes. I saw it with my own eyes is a certain sense of certainty. I saw it. It was in front of me. You can't deny it. I saw it with my own eyes. If you say I heard it, that's just, on the opposite, we don't just say that was just I see. We say that was just hearsay, right? It was just hearsay. You just heard it. How do you know it's true? How do you know it's this? How do you know? Seeing something is very, very powerful. Also, very often, when we make a rule, is the rule something which is external or intrinsic? Okay? If I would say no running in the halls, does that mean that you can't run in the halls? No, it means you shouldn't run in the halls. It's an external thing. Don't run in the halls. I don't want you to. It's external. If I would say the phone will drop if I let go, is that it should drop or it does drop? It does. It does drop. It doesn't. It's not it should. I'm not making the rule. It's just a reality that exists within the world. I can see with my eyes. It's not that I hear the rule. Hearing something is from one person to another telling you about something else. Seeing something is that it's a reality. It just exists. And so one of the messages, according to this, all the different miracles that we've seen so far, which is the miracle of the animals, everything in the world stopping, because a new process has started. The idea of the Aseret HaDibrot paralleling to the Aseret Ma'amarot of Bereshit, of creation, the 10 proclamations of creation. All of these parallels are showing us that there's a reality that's now changed. Torah is not something that you just hear. It's something that you live. It's something that you experience. It's something that is something you see, and not just you hear. They sound like halachot. And if you open up a Shulchan Aruch, there are a lot. You read a lot of words, and you're taught a lot of shiurim by teachers and by rabbis and by mentors. But is it just hearsay, or it's a reality that we live? And that's what the Torah is coming to tell us over here. See the words, see the hearing. Don't just hear it as something that's external. Live it as if it's a reality that belongs to us, that we can see with our own eyes. We can see Shabbat. Shabbos is not something that we just keep. Shabbos is something that exists in my life. It's there. I can't change that. It's Shabbos. It's not that I keep Shabbos. It is Shabbos. And that's something that the Torah is trying to tell us when it comes and shows us the sights. It's a very, very powerful message. I'm going to give another idea, which I think also is very much connected to all of these different sources, but is a totally different idea in itself. That doesn't take away from each one. We can explain the miracles as having different messages. And that's the beauty of multimedia. When you give us a song, or poetry, or a video, is able to have multiple messages. If I tell you, the message is to see that Torah is a reality, I just gave you one message. But if I show you the sights, you can actually have a number of different messages at once. That's the beauty of using multimedia, because you're able to give over, everyone's able to take a different idea, and both are true. And God can show us so many different things at once, and that's, I believe, why the Nevi'im, very often, were not just told ideas, they were given ideas through mashalim, through visions. And so, over here what we have is, I think, another very, very important concept. And Rav Kook, in source number 8, picks up on this. Okay, we're going to read it in English because Rav Kook in general is probably one of the hardest sources to understand in Hebrew. And so in source number 8, it says as follows. The main principle of learning Torah for its sake, what does that mean to learn Torah for its sake? Can only be realized if one understands and realizes the significance of how all the specifics in the Torah are loved with a holy appreciation, and how the universal light of Torah that fills the whole world with life lies within all of the specifics. So I didn't say it's easier in English. It's not easier in English, but it's at least we understood each word as opposed to not understanding the words. Now we just have to put together the sentences and the phrases. So we'll focus on the last part. Okay? The Torah fills the whole world with life, lies within all of the specifics. So over here we see that Rav Kook is talking about there's a whole, and there's the specifics. There's the big picture, and there's how you get there. Very, very often, there's a difficulty while we live a life of Torah, and we follow the mitzvot. We wash our hands in the morning, we say Modeani, we eat this amount of matzah and that amount of matzah, we eat this maror, we go through, we shake the lulav in this way, we make sure the etrog is kosher. All the different specifics that we do sometimes are very, very, very hard to relate to. We come to this like, why does God care? What's the point? What's the point of all these little halachot? There's 1 million halachot in the Torah. There's 613 mitzvot, but the amount of halachot are endless. And so we have every single specific thing. We tie our shoes this way, and we put on our shoes that way, and the way we dress, and the way we act, and the way we speak, and the way we do. And it's just constant tasks that we need to accomplish. Very, very, very hard to see the big picture. Rav Kook spends a very, very long time talking about this, and this is part of his entire world view of how to view and why he was very sympathetic towards the secular Zionists. And he said the secular Zionists were picking up on this. And they were very, very frustrated by the fact that the specifics of Torah had taken over, and they were losing the big picture. He says, imagine if, let's say, you were an alien that came down, and you opened up the Tanakh. An alien opens up the Tanakh and sees that we're talking about the chosen people. The people that are supposed to be an Or LaGoyim. The people that are supposed to create a Mamleket Kohanim V'Eloi Kadosh. A people that have the strong messages of Yeshayahu and Yirmiyahu. The ones that are supposed to bring God's name down to the world. All these amazing and beautiful ideas. And he comes down and he asks around where the Jews live. And they say, they live in that shtetl over there. There's a big population of Jews. They're very, very religious. Oh, it's very religious. It's very impressive. And he walks in there and he sees that he asks, where are the Jews? He says, well, you can go speak to the rabbi. What's the rabbi? The rabbi is the leader of the Jewish people. People come there and ask him questions. And they ask him advice. And so this alien is thinking, wow, I'm finally going to meet the leader of the Jewish people that's spoken about in Tanakh. And I'm coming, he walks there, and he comes and he says, you're the rabbi? Yes, I'm the rabbi. He says, can I listen to the questions that people ask you? And he sits down next to the rabbi, and he sees the rabbi is sitting there waiting for people to come. All of a sudden someone walks in. The alien perks up and says, wow, finally I'm going to hear the messages of life and morality and big. And all of a sudden a woman takes out from her bag a dead chicken and says, was this cut correctly? Is it kosher? And how about these lungs? What about these lungs? Are they smooth to you? Do they feel smooth, these lungs? And the rabbi touches them. He goes, oh, yeah, it's kosher. And she walks away. She's looking at this like, what's going on? What happened to Or LaGoy? What happened to Goy Kadosh? What happened to these big ideas of creating a mamlacha, loki bi malachim imlochu, that we are the kings following God? And then he doesn't know what to do. And then another person comes in and a man takes out his tzitzit and says, did I tie this correctly? He looks at them, counts the number of strings, and wraps around, and he says, you missed one. And he wraps it around, he ties it again, and he walks out. And the alien looks at the rabbi and says, what's going on? What happened? What is this? What this is the Torah? Rav Kook says that was the feeling that the secular Zionists had. They're reading the Tanakh, they're reading all about these beautiful ideas, and they don't understand how it connects. And it's a very, very big issue. That doesn't mean to say, we know that these specifics are so important. We know that these specifics are what builds the tapestry, the beautiful painting. Each brushstroke is needed in order to make the beautiful tapestry that we have in front of us. And that's what they saw at Har Sinai. What they saw at Har Sinai, says Rav Kook, was they were able to see the bigger picture. How each specific fits into the bigger picture. How do we see that within the miracle? They're able to see sounds. There's a very big difference between how we see and how we hear. Hearing is based upon hearing a lot of different noises, and our brain processes all those specific noises and creates them into words, into paragraphs, and then we understand what the idea is. Seeing just doesn't work like that. We don't see lots of different things. We see the big picture. We don't hear the big picture. And also, when you're able to see lots of things at once, you're able to see lots, you can stand back and see the view. You can't hear lots of things at once. You walk into a lunchroom with lots of children talking, you don't hear a single word, all you hear is noise, buzz. Because we hear specifics and we see the big picture. When we're able to see the sounds, that's the beauty of the Torah on Har Sinai. And Har Sinai, we're all of a sudden able to see how everything fits. We're able to see that, I see all these different halachot. They're fit into something that's real, it's big, it's amazing, I understand. And when I see the wrapping of the tzitzit and the lungs on the chicken and the whether or not it was shechted correctly and all the different specifics that we have in the kosher etrog and the love of those specifics, I'm able to see, wow, it fits into something. I can see why that stroke was made because I understand the bigger picture. The Torah comes and shows us this miracle in order to give us the message that there is something going on. There's a big picture. There's a beautiful picture. The big and the small, the klali and the prat, the specifics and the universal idea, all of a sudden became one at Har Sinai. We see this also in a very, very powerful message. And that's in source number 9. We find two, I think they're miracles. I think we'll understand, I think they're very, very big miracles. It's found in Shmot Perek Kaf. No, actually Perek Yud Tet. I apologize, it's a mistake. It says in Pasuk Bet, Vayisu mi Refidim, they went from Refidim, Vayavo Midbar Sinai, and they came to Midbar Sinai, Vechanu ba Midbar, and they rested in the Midbar, Vayichan Sham Yisrael neged Ahar, and he rested neged Ahar. Chazal picks up on a famous idea which shows us that there's a grammatical error over here. The grammatical error is that it says Vayichan. Vayichan means he rested, or in singular. But we know that the Jewish people were more than one person. So why does it say that they rested? The miracle was that, as a famous idea,
One as a people?
One as a people. They were one as a people. When they got the Torah, as Rashi says, Ki ish echad belev echad, as one person. That's an incredible idea. That all the Jews, it's an amazing miracle, that all the Jews came together as one. The next idea is found in very much an opposite. And we don't actually notice that this is a miracle. The Midrash Tanchuma opens our eyes to this. It says, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, God's first dibra is, I am the Lord your God. What does I am the Lord your God mean? It's also grammatically difficult because who's God talking to? God's talking to the Jewish people. It should said, Anochi Hashem Elokechem. I am the Lord your God in plural. Why does it say Anochi Hashem Elokecha in singular? And you would think that the same exact answer, Chazal would tell us the exact same answer. That it was, just as Vayichan in singular means that we were all one, so too, Anochi Hashem Elokecha would mean that we're all one together, and that's why it's written in singular. But if you look at source number 12 on the 3rd page, we see something totally different. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, Amar Rabbi Levi, Nir Elam HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ki ikonin hazo, sheyesh lem panim mekom makom. Elef bnei adam mabitim bo, v'hi mabetet b'kulam. Kach HaKadosh Baruch Hu k'shaya medaber, kol echad ve'echad miYisrael haya omer, imi haya hadibur. Just the last line in English, so too, when Hashem spoke to them, each individual would say, He spoke directly to me. This is an amazing idea. When I first envisioned Har Sinai, I always thought of it as a group of people standing below on a mountain, looking up at the top of the mountain and seeing this amazing event. All of the nations standing together like a grand theater, a huge event, a concert or something like that, much more lahavdil. But at a concert, everyone's watching this big event, we're all standing together, and up on the mountain we see the anan, we see the brakim, we see the shofar, we see all of it, and we hear God's voice. But the Midrash says, no, you got it all wrong, that's not what happened. What happened was, each person around Har Sinai was having their own individual event, where God stood with them and revealed the Torah to them, specifically, just to you. And it's interesting that the same grammatical difference, the grammatical difference in Vayichan, which was written in singular, and we said the reason is because everyone was one together, shows the plurality of everyone together, has the exact same grammatical difference. We have the opposite conclusion, where it says, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, God said, I am your God in singular. We say, that's because He was talking only to one person. He was talking to every one person, but everyone had their own individual revelation. It's incredible that God spoke to us individually. It wasn't just a national thing. It wasn't just seeing something from afar, but rather it was an intimate relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way I saw it. Everyone had their own vision. And this is what we say when we see 600,000 Jews. When we see 600,000 Jews standing together, there's a special bracha. This is found in source number 13 in the Gemara in Brachas Taf Nun Chet. Tana Rabbanan, Hora'eh uchlasei Yisrael omer Baruch HaCham HaRazim, she'en da'atam domeh ze lezeh, ve'en partzufim domim ze lezeh. We say a very interesting bracha. We say the bracha which says, blessed is the one whose knowledge encompasses the wisdom of the secrets. Okay? Why do we say this? When we see 600,000 Jews, because everyone's faces are different and everyone's different. So we say, blessed is the one that encompasses all of wisdom. The Gemara here and this bracha that we make is coming to tell us that every single person has their own way of viewing something, their own opinion, their own derech. Chanoch nar al pi darko, because everyone is made differently. And if everyone's made differently, they each have their own relationship with God. But when you put them all together, all of a sudden, that's when you get the entire Torah. All of knowledge is put together only when we connect everyone together. So Rav Kook, in source number 14, says this was the amazing miracle of having one, all of Am Yisrael was together. But being together does not mean that everyone saw the same thing, everyone experienced the same thing, everyone is the same. That's not what it means for Am Yisrael to be together. Am Yisrael being together means that everybody has their own place, and everyone has a place in the puzzle. This is totally against the universal ideas of when everyone is equal, everyone is the same. That's not what we try to say in Torah. Everyone is equally important only because we're all different. Because we're all different, because we each had our own different interpretation and different revelation in Har Sinai, that's what makes Va'ichan ha'am misaviv lahar true. We can only be one as a people if we're all able to express our differences and be respectful of everyone else's differences. Rav Kook says that this is the message of what Torah is all about. Torah is about realizing that first and foremost, I have a very, very important side to Torah which has never been expressed before, which has never been spoken before, which has never been deciphered before, and I am responsible to have, and the world needs me to express that idea. On the other hand, because I have this need, and because I know that I have a unique understanding of the Torah, a unique revelation with God, a unique connection with God, I also have to realize that I have to be open to everyone else's unique revelation of God. And that's how you create V'yichan ha'am. So we have, in two different ways, a miracle which shows us the big picture and the small picture. It shows that Torah is built upon huge building blocks, a huge idea that you're able to see how all the specifics fit into that big idea. And each specific is important. And also with people, you're also to see the same thing. How all of Am Yisrael together, Vayichan ha'am, is also only expressed when everybody has their own revelation, everyone able to give the unique perspective on Torah and their connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Vayichan kolam, anochi el Hashem HaKelokecha, as HaKadosh Baruch Hu stood, ki ikinon, as a stood in front of each individual person and gave them their own special revelation. Now these are the educational messages, I think very powerful educational messages, that God placed within not just the content of Har Sinai. Har Sinai wasn't just about the Aseret Dibros, but it was able to give us, through the miracles and through everything that happened, a very, very good perspective on how Torah works. And how our perspective will work, likrat, when we're coming towards Matan Torah, the perspective that we should have, being able to see how all the specifics are important because they fit into the log picture, and how all of the individuals are important because they fit into the big picture. And then we're able to see what we mentioned before of seeing the sound, to be able to see Torah as not just hearsay, as not just ideas, but rather as a very, very important lifestyle and life that we live that exists within reality, and everything stopped in order for this reality to change course for all of history and for us to be part of creation. Have a good Shavuot Tov.